So if we look, trunk rotation's kind of poor, so that's gonna challenge you to keep your trunk back as your hips are opening. Your hip abduction is tight, so it's gonna challenge how you can spread down the mount, or you can kind of like side split down the mount, which if you're tight and staying closed and basically moving sideways, and you're tight in rotation, you're gonna pretty much probably just shut your hips down. You're not gonna drive your hips. Ankles look okay, tight in hip internal rotation. So also your thigh is tight. So you are battling a lot of hip and trunkish tightness. But you're like 27-inch vert at 214. Like your speed's not too bad. It's average for, you know, a pro level. You know, but this could all get better. Actually, you had good strength. I mean, 900 is elite. That's not bad. So I think upper body, good upper body strength. So I have a feeling you're strong, you're quick. You're just really tough with some of this. So, but here's the thing. We can't just sit here and think we got to fix our mobility, because this will help. If we can get this even better, we don't have to get so perfect over here, which is going to be really hard to do. Okay. So like your hip flexion, trunk going forward it's gonna be hard going forward. Your trunk extension is actually not too bad, but so you have a lot of challenges in you getting your hips to go, and I have a feeling you're not going to do it because of your poor trunk rotation. So if I have a hard time rotating my hip and I have a hard time keeping my trunk back, then the most important thing is just to keep my trunk back. So what I'll do is you won't really try to use your hips. You'll just keep your trunk back and you'll try to use your upper body. And I think that's what's happening. All right, so let's look at coming out of leg lift. All right, so you can see right out of leg lift, you're letting the lift leg get ahead, which when the lift leg gets ahead, you're starting to rotate early. And you're not really sitting and loading here. You're letting everything really open up, okay? So you can see that red line, see how it's turning? Elite guys, as they're coming out of leg lift, they're actually counter-rotating, right? They're sitting and loading back. You're letting it all go. But at the end of the day, you're letting it all go because you don't have the ability to sit back. You can't sit back because your hip abduction's tight, because your femur rotation is tight. So it's gonna be hard for you to get your femur around. If you can't get your femur around, you can't open your hips up. So basically what you're doing is you're just avoiding a problem right now by flying open. So then you fly open, the back leg just really follows. It just kind of, you know, maybe some extension, but it just really just lays down and follows. Because once again, you're not gonna power these hips, just like I said. You're landing right now, your hips have barely rotated open. Because if your hips were here, your trunk would be flying because you're so tight. So you just decided to just let your lift leg go ahead, get you down, and use whatever momentum, and maybe a little late push off your ankle. And you left your hips closed so you can now accelerate your trunk. You're limited. It's a lot of stress on your arm, and when you're trying to get 90 plus, it's like you capped out at this point. So yeah, you could sit here and try to accelerate your arm faster and faster, but you're gonna literally be pushing towards injury really quickly, right? So if we look at the kinematic sequence, so this is how things are accelerating over time. So basically, this is time, this is degrees per second. So if something's moving fast, it's just going straight up and down. Look at your hip, just like I said. Look at this wavy line. Like it started back here. Like a little hip speed, slow down, a little more hip speed, slow down. Now it starts building, and now you landed. Now you're using your landing to peak it, but it's peaking too late. It should have peaked way back here when you were driving, but it peaked all the way up here after your trunk had already opened up. Like I said, you're shutting your hips off because you have too much mobility restrictions. So you're just going, okay, I can't use my hips, but I'm gonna use my trunk. So what's powering your trunk is your glove. See that blue line? Now, these sensors can only pick up 60 hertz. So that means you're too fast for these sensors. So you're pulling your glove so fast, it can't figure out where your wrist is. Your arm's going so fast, it can't figure out where your wrist is either, because those are the fastest moving parts, right? So it just shows you, the fact that the sensors can't keep up shows you you're landing with no hip power and you're just yanking the shit out of your upper body. And like I said, that's hard on your arm, and it's limited because you're only pretty much using this oblique, this back here, to yank everything around. And you can only do that so hard. If you're doing this ideally, you're using all those legs, powering the hips, and then transferring that to the trunk. So we have to go back with you and really restore and see if we can rebuild your hip mobility problems. If we can do that, if we can like really, all of a sudden you get all this hip power, or this hip rotation, dude, because you have decent leg power, your velo is just gonna explode. So I think the exciting thing is when you actually learn how to mobilize and use your hips, and we can get some more power through them, because we'll keep building power through them, dude, you'll be a 95 guy. Because then what you're gonna do is you're gonna push all this energy up you rarely get. And then your upper body's gonna be like, holy shit, now I got this energy.
Like fall down and just kind of
you just yank it.
catapult on those
Right,
things.
so think about it. The day you learn to push all this power up, then your arms receiving all this power, it's just like whatever you're doing here is just icing on the cake at that point. So you got big challenges in your hip mobility and big challenges in then learning how to use your hips, because you probably really never learned how to use your hips. So then you're gonna have to change your motor control. Oh, let my hips work before I go. And that's a whole different understanding and feel of how to throw.